Good morning, colleagues. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Colin Thakur. As mentioned, I am from the Durban University of Technology. My background in South Africa is that I've served in almost every imaginable and conceivable role within the ICT space. I was the National Treasurer of the Computer Society of South Africa, a member of the inaugural Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, the Complaints and Compliance Commission. So I've pretty much been the definition of a geek all my life. And I also, had the benefit of living through the transition of South Africa. And I remember that the byline then was one person, one vote. And then I thought to myself, what can I, as a digital activist, add to that and add value to one person, one vote? And that's how I came up with this one person, one connected device. Initially, it was one person, one device. Of course, now with communication being the new thing, I decided to add the word connected to it. So hence the role of one person, one connected device. So, and over time, I've been appointed the research chair in digitalization as opposed to digitization. And the reason for that was because it occurred to me that we understand technology and we work so much with technology, but when you work with technology and you work with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you're the captain of the ship, you know everything about your ship, but you forget about this thing called the ocean economy. Likewise, when we are working in the digital space, we also need to understand the digital economy. So I'm going to take you through. I always play this song because this is the signature tune of our president, President Ramaphosa. When he was appointed, he played this song, and the song means "Send Me." And he was basically saying that we all need to deploy ourselves and use ourselves to better and benefit the country. So, Hugh Masekela, salute to you, salute to our president, and let's hope that the digital economy will also grow the South African economy. I'm now going to speak about this notion of digitization versus digitalization. And I thought it'd be reflective for me to pick some Southern African examples so that we can understand where the country is. If you had to look at the insurance industry, there is this company called Dial Direct. You will not find Dial Direct in any store. There is no brick and mortar place that you can find Dial Direct simply because they exist only online. So they are the true definition of digital transformation. If you had to look at Time Bank is now formally recognized as the largest, fastest growing, not the largest, but the fastest growing bank in the world. It's growing at the rate of 135,000 customers per month. Again, Time Bank uses what you and I know as the service economy or the sharing economy, and it uses the footprint of large chain stores to get it. It has no formal branch, but uses the premises of other people, pretty much like Airbnb. Discovery Bank is the world's first behavioral bank. It uses this notion of behavior. It monitors the behavior of a customer, just like the Discovery Insurance, where it monitors the driving behavior of a vehicle and rewards you for obedient and good driving, which promotes savings on claims. And when you promote savings on claims, you have fewer claims. When you have fewer claims, you earn more money. So the client wins and Discovery wins. So it really is really interesting is how technology is now starting to also observe the behavior of people. Then we have SARS. Some of you may not know this, or some of you would know this. But in 2010, the only reason that the 2010 really worked as well as it did was because the IT staff from SARS supported FIFA in delivering the FIFA World Cup in South Africa. That is how good they were in 2010. Over time, they've lost some key staff and they've shifted backwards to digitization and a little bit forward. So somewhere now they're in the middle of the pack in terms of where they should be or ought to be. National Home Affairs, I always say this, I don't know which Home Affairs you get. They have all the technology, they have all the processes. But sometimes it's about attitude, sometimes it's about behavior, and you don't know which Home Affairs you're going to get when you go there. So it is always a challenge that we need to understand, and this shows to us the counter example that it's not only about technology, it's also about people. So the people process technology thing is as important. This driver's license that we have in South Africa, it's probably the most creative, well-planned, useful document in the world, but it has absolutely no value to us. We don't use it. We don't harvest the gold that is in there. We don't use it for other purposes. It is just a document that we keep in our pocket that we show to the policemen when they stop us. We need to start thinking creatively about how we can digitalize that wonderful nugget in our wallets. The National Health Insurance Act is with us and it's going to be with us. We need to start working on that. It is a huge opportunity for every citizen of this country to be connected and to have a medical record, a digital medical record. It's a massive opportunity waiting to be harvested. So that hopefully paints some context to you in terms of where we are. We also know this thing called the fourth industrial revolution is happening. Before I move on to the fourth industrial revolution, may I ask that you consider this? What opportunity do you see from digitization to digitalization for you as an individual, for you as a department in your organization, for you as a company, and for you as an industry? Each one will provide a different set of answers to you. If you had to look at the other situation, a counterexample is that the COVID-19 data that is being collected by the command center, by the National Command Center, up to now in many, many cases is using paper, Industry 1.0. People type in or write in the number and the number is phoned through some person, another person takes it, and then the number is tabulated at a national level. Can you see the sources of errors? What are we as an industry doing together to support government in digitizing this and just transmitting the data? Why haven't we done that? So there's an opportunity waiting for us. This notion of the fourth industrial revolution has been with us, and it's a banded term, and everyone is talking about it. Of course, COVID has kind of taken over the discussion, but 4IR is still here, and we all worry about 4IR in terms of robots and automation and what would it mean for jobs to ourselves. Let's see what it means. Well, this is a picture from last year. Standard Bank announced they were going to release or fall on 1,200 people, ABSA 827, NetBank 1,500, Massmark 1,400, Telcom 4,000, and MultiChoice 2,194. This is the job losses that were before COVID. And the 2,194 MultiChoice colleagues is actually most or many of these jobs were as a result of chatbot creation. So the service center has endured the biggest cut because they've innovated a very, very interesting chatbot process where you actually talk to a robot and it handles all your queries. So there is a degree of automation. There is a reason to be concerned about job losses. On the other hand, COVID has exacerbated this loss to the extent that we now know that at least 3 million jobs have been lost already. And the short, medium term is dire. It means that we're going to lose even more jobs as time goes on. So this is a carnage. And this is where we are. So is it all doom and gloom? Well, not really. Because if we had to look at it just from the 4IR lens, McKinsey and IBM claim that they need to train 120 million people worldwide to respond to this new digitalization and digitization. And if you look at the number for South Africa, they've worked it out as 1.2 million, which is a really interesting thing because South Africa has only 0.5% of the worldwide population. But there you have 1.2 million people or jobs that need to be created to support the fourth industrial revolution. So the good news is that we seem to be boxing above our weight. If you had to look at technology in itself as a destroyer of jobs, that's a dark view. But what if you had to look at technology as an enabler of the job? That's a bright view. But what if you had to look at it somewhere in the middle? If you had to look at the personal computer, which was invented or innovated or deployed in the 1980s, when it was deployed, 3.5 million jobs were lost immediately or almost immediately. The typing pool disappeared, the receptionist and the secretary became one job. So many, many jobs collapsed or converged into one. That's on the negative side. On the positive side, 19 million new jobs that never existed before were created. So you're always going to have this boom bust cycle with digitization and digitalization. As something is innovated, it creates a new job. What kind of new jobs does it create? Well, there you go. If you had to look at the jobs in South Africa at the moment, I did a quick scan of all the jobs available in the country, and I just put the USA as a counterexample that they need 250,000 additional data scientists at the moment. And I added all the jobs that are available in the country, and I came up with a number of 61,000 jobs that could be as a cause of the 4IR innovation. So yes, we are going to lose jobs, but we are going to create new kinds of different jobs. So we now know that this thing called digitization is happening, and digital transformation is happening. What have you done for digital transformation in the country? As a data carrier, you have a role. We see fiber everywhere, we see people digging everywhere. But what else have we done? Who is driving digital transformation in the world at this moment? And by the way, look at Africa and look at the rest of the world in terms of things. Africa is still a dark continent, massive opportunity for growth. And that is the way you need to look at it. The glass is exactly half full. There's a lot of opportunity. But back to the question, who is driving digital transformation? There's a viral tweet that is going on Twitter right now, and it asks that question. And the answer almost unanimously is that the culprit that is driving digital transformation in the world right now is COVID-19. Not the CTO, not the CIO, not the CEO, not government, not the board, but COVID-19. So we now know that COVID-19 has had many, many dire negative consequences, but it's also now forcing us to look at this notion of digital transformation. So digital transformation introduces to us this notion of data. And data is now universally acknowledged as the new oil. I'll go one step further and say, actually, data is the new crude oil, because we need to work with the data. We need to take this data and convert this data into information, because data on its own has not much value. Take this information and convert this information into knowledge, and then take that knowledge and convert it into wisdom. Everybody is talking to everybody else in the world, or every device is now talking to everybody. We have this notion of M2M. When everything is talking to everybody else, who is listening and who is harvesting and who is actively listening in order to convert opportunities into some product or some monetary process? This is the opportunity that we have. We need to start thinking about communication, active communication, but also active listening, and also intelligent active listening. So we have this data, information, knowledge, wisdom, life cycle that I've been talking to you about. Of course, if you don't listen carefully and you misinterpret the data, there are consequences. Watch.
So what are you doing tonight?
Nothing.
Do you want to go to a party with me?
Yeah.
And we could just go to my place before and hang out.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Hold on.
Oh, I thought you were talking. You can't always be smooth, even when you're not.
I'm really sorry about what just happened.
Oh, that's cool. I feel embarrassed.
Just a second.
Okay, so we really need to be careful when we actively listen. We also need to intelligently and actively listen. So now we have this burden call opportunity, and I deliberately call this a burden call opportunity because we really are uncertain as to what to do at this stage. We have 25,000 schools, of which services 12 million learners. Should we start connecting these schools to the grid? Or has the kids gone home and will only learn from home? We really don't know the answer to that, but we do know that there are 14 million households in the country, with 75, 76% formal, 8% traditional, and 13.5% informal. I submit that the latter 25% represent an opportunity that very few people have carefully considered, or considered it as an opportunity. If you drive around the country and you look at the so-called informal settlements, have you noticed the number of DSTV satellite dishes in the settlements? So clearly, DSTV or multi-choice has worked out that pay TV is a profitable business in those areas. What have we done to enable or harvest that opportunity? Okay, Wi-Fi or connectivity to anybody in a shack. We go to the cinemas to dream. A child who lives in an informal settlement, he says, when I'm on the internet, I'm no longer a kid living in a shack. He lives on the internet space and he becomes someone else. Because data is a human right, and we need to start thinking about that. And we need to start looking at data in a different way. Of course, COVID has mutated the businessman as well, right? So now we have this tenderpreneur that we used to fondly think of before, has now morphed or evolved into this thing called the COVIDpreneur. And before you think that the COVIDpreneur is a uniquely South African thing, think again. The COVIDpreneur exists in Brazil, the COVIDpreneur exists in North Africa, the COVIDpreneur exists in Mexico, and they are doing far more drastically acts than you and I could ever imagine. So this notion of COVIDpreneur is a sad reality. What can we, by actively listening to the data, can we leverage and work out activities that are against the best intentions of the country? Okay. On the positive side, for the industry as a whole, we've now crossed that magical 1 terabyte per second on the 5th of March, and the data is only going up. Of course, our DDoS is going up by between 20 and 70%, depending on the day of the week. However, for the online people, every day has now converted into a Cyber Monday, and they are really, really doing very well. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we benefit from this new online existence? Let's look at this whole online thing. Right now, you and I are online. Zoom has over 300 million meeting participants per day. Teams, on the other hand, claims that they only have 75 million participants per day because Zoom, every time you log off a meeting and log back on, it counts you a second time. If you log on a third time, it counts you a third time. Teams counts you once and once only per day. The figure that really, really intrigues me is that Teams said that on one day this month, 5 billion minutes was consumed by Teams people participating. 5 billion minutes in one day. These numbers make no sense in our head. Zoom says that in the month of April, they had 2 trillion minutes of video conferencing. Once again, these are numbers that we need to start carefully looking at and seeing what value can we harvest from that? What are we doing? Are people just talking? Where is the intelligence gathering? And by the way, these video conferencing things are consuming data at the rates of knots, 225 megabytes per hour for Teams and 400 megabytes for Zoom. So my advice to you would be, do things with your clients, not only for your clients. You are the data provider, you are the carrier, but there are lots of things that goes on with the consequences of this data. I submit that the alcohol and the tobacco industries, okay, we can neither drink nor smoke in the country right now, I get that. But I submit that both of these two industries tell us more about the negative impacts of these things than we do. Think about this notion of phishing, wishing, smishing, this notion of sharenting, sexting, doxing, vigilantism. These are all new words that have entered our vocabulary. What have we done to educate our customers about these things? There's a new act now. The PUPPY Act is now a law. The PAIA Act is now law. And these two laws actually collude and collide with each other because they're actually at opposite sides. One talks about access to information and the other talks about privacy of information. We need to start re-looking at our role, not only as carriers, but also as intelligent carriers and as sophisticated carriers and as responsible carriers. So, but how can a carrier innovate? I mean, sometimes it's useful as a carrier to look at other industries to see what they do in that. Look at the simplistic example here. A cement carrier, and then suddenly, while you are carrying the cement, you're performing the mix. A trivial, simple example that illustrates an innovation that has happened that made the industry more responsive, saving time. Let's look at another industry. NIIT is a $120 million company that is really, really good at delivering training to people. They innovated, and they have a similar kind of circumstance in South Africa where informal settlements coexist right next door to formal and sophisticated first world environments. They cobbled this hole in the wall project, which I urge you to Google, where they simply created access to people by creating a literal hole in the wall, adding computers to it, which were free access, and the kids could go to it. They did no training or anything. All they did was put the computer in there, and they put those covers in there so the kids could do that during bad weather and also close it if it was typhoon time. And these kids have now benefited from access to a device. All that was done was data was provided and equipment was provided. And this hole in the wall project has won them a lot of awards. And it also had a positive impact of growing the NIIT brand. So sometimes when you do the right things, better things happen to you. They went ahead and also had the world's largest chess playing competition with over 20,000 people in Gujarat in 2010. We in South Africa have, I'm a Cisco trainer. We have the Cisco Networking Academy there's about 34 institutions in Southern Africa that have the Cisco Academy. We train over 22,000 people already through this academy, not at DUT, but in Southern Africa. Oracle has a similar experience. So there are lots and lots of good examples of companies that have used the CSI as upskilling projects, which is a very useful thing. But you need to understand whether your goal is CSI or your goal is profit. If your goal is profit, then understand that you are a carrier, not necessarily an education partner. Let me give you this example. GetSmarter was a local online training company, pretty much like Udemy or edX or Coursera, pretty much like them. What did they do? They went and partnered with the University of Cape Town. And the consequence was that they were sold to you for $103 million US 2 years ago. Now, this is a South African company in Cape Town that was sold for 1 billion South African rands. It helped that we were on the GMT. It helped our timeline and locations helped. It helped that the company had a good back end. And the company was sold for $103 million. So they took a decision that they're going to do this for profit, and they were unashamed about it. And there you go. So we know that everybody has a dream to be educated. And this is why all of those examples that I spoke to you about really plays into the space. South Africa is desperately seeking for skills, and maybe we need to look at that in terms of our role as well. We always look to the West for guidance, but we need to also start thinking and being more realistic and observe that the top internet speed is in Taiwan, Singapore, and Japan. The average mobile connection speeds is in Norway and South Korea. So we need to start understanding that innovation doesn't only come from the West, it also comes from the East. And we need to think that the world is indeed a global village. For you, for the Cyber Monday, everybody is on your traffic, is using your traffic to make their purchase. What can we do to improve the UX experience of the customer? We need to create an immersive experience or a showrooming experience, or if they're going to a classroom, can we create a classroom experience, an office experience? If you want to go look at wildlife, can we have a park-like experience? Can we have a chat box that accompanies a particular person as this person walks down an aisle, a virtual aisle in a store, and talks to the customer and says, this is on special, that is on special. This will really work with the kind of thing that you have at home because it'll have a memory of what the customer has. So, and you really have to have real specials, not special that the chatbot just thinks of, because customers will compare their engagement online. So you can't have stories online. COVID is going to do one other thing to us. It has already done one thing to us, to force us to work from home. But if you think that we were only working from home this year, it's not really true. Investec, HP South Africa, Accenture, and PwC in 2019 have already allowed many of the staff to spend many of the days at home. So this whole notion of small office, home office, work from home has already started worldwide and indeed in South Africa. It's just been multiplied or gone exponential with COVID. What can we do to improve the homeowner's experience? The data is now distributed from the central business district to the suburb. What can we do to support them? So normally the enemy has a purpose of uniting everybody, and some people call this a massive transformative purpose. Massive transformative purposes really unite nations and the world. When John F. Kennedy said, let's land on the moon, the whole of America laughed at him. When Cyril Ramaphosa said, let's have one tablet per child, the whole of South Africa laughed at him. Guess what? Then COVID happened. Now it's going to be a fact that by the end of this year, certainly by next year, every child will have a device. Whatever the device is, a child will have a device, and the device will only get better. We have a 91% penetration, which is doubled since 2016. And the penetration is just getting better and better and better. So pretty soon we're going to have a fully connected grid. And when you have a fully connected grid, a new economic paradigm emerges. New businesses can benefit from that. There are certain types of technology that demands full connectivity. It's what we call the all or none law. And that's the only point when that type of innovation can take place. If you think of mobile voting and internet voting, those kind of things can only happen once you have 100% community. I also submit that another thing that's going to happen is that ISPs are not only going to have to talk to the individual, they're also going to have to talk to machines. They're going to talk to the machines in your house, to your geysers, and to all the other electrical devices in your house. That when we have ISCOM happening, which it will, then ESCOM can on its own turn off certain devices in your house without denying an entire area a total brownout or a blackout. So the thing about innovation and the thing about digitalization is that it's an awkward space to go down. It's also a scary space to go down. And this is why when you look at companies like Tata, they really are enabling. What they do is they say, let's fail forward. By fail forward, we mean that let's try new things. And they actually give the company with the most intriguing, crazy idea an award every year to encourage everybody to say, thinking is not a bad idea. Let's keep thinking and let's dare to try. So if Tata can do that, maybe as an industry we can set it up, or maybe as a company you can do it, or maybe as a department. The choice is yours. Disruption itself is actually an incremental thing. So I would urge you to look at this particular one. It's really an interesting graph. I need you to look at this one along with the next slide, and to look at it from your own company perspective. Look at it as a department. Look at it as a business unit in your organization. Look at it as a business unit as your company, and then look at it as the sector, and see what is it that we can do? What is it that you can do on your own or together to create new paradigms, or to accelerate innovation, or to accelerate adoption of an innovation? And that's, to me, the interesting thing. For me, my most important takeaway to you, ladies and gentlemen, is the following. Look at each one of these: high-speed internet, big data, Internet of Things, cloud, artificial intelligence, and so on and so on. Look at each one of them. Have a brown bag lunch on a Friday with your client or your staff. Consider each topic in light of what you do, what you can do, what skills you have, and what opportunity you can create. It may not be that you will yourself benefit from it, but whatever you innovate or discuss, you can share with your client. And when you share with your client, it becomes a conversation. When you have a conversation, you have a partnership. Partnerships grow businesses. So I really, really would urge you to unpack this particular one and take all of the elements that constitute this notion of 4IR and re-examine it and look at that. But at the end of the day, technology is about people using technology. Technology is not a panacea. Watch.
Emma. 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 Emma.
Thank you very much, Suresh. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Colin, for a very interesting and engaging talk. Laveen, you go next.
Kumar, we have a poll actually before Levin's presentation.
Okay.
So, are you facing any issues with your existing broadband network due to the traffic surge? Options are yes, no, and not sure.
So you have 1 minute. So we request you to please answer this poll while the next speaker gets ready. You can vote for the poll, I think, by clicking on the poll at the bottom.
I guess we can end the poll now.
Yeah, okay, thank you. End the poll.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Great to have everyone on the webinar. And thanks to Dr. Thakur joining us from Durban with that insightful chat. I hope you all are keeping safe during these COVID times. And more importantly, I'm hoping you found a rhythm to working during these unprecedented times that's helping you progress. But I thank you for making the time, and hoping this webinar can add some value to yourselves and your organizations in some shape or form. And as possible, wherever we can, we'd love to add value into that. Just by way of introduction, I'm Laveen Singh. I am the CEO of Cisco Africa Technologies. I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview of the group, just so you get a context of the size of the group and the diversity of the group before we actually delve into the specific Cisco Tejas and Tejas Networks partnership. You probably know the group from one of our more well-known brands that belongs to the group, which is National Security and Fire, which many of you may have known existed as Chubb Security back in the day. The group purchased that 3 years ago, and it's part of the group security services arm. I head up the technology business, and that comprises of 4 key technology businesses. The one that we're focusing on today and the one that we're talking about today is the Cisco Tejas business, which has the exclusive partnership with Tejas Networks in South Africa. What I wanted to cover today was just to give you a quick overview of the partnership, how it came about and the values that we believe it can bring. The group itself is also just as a starting point in the group. The group's quite a large group, and we're a BE level 1 contributor across the entire group and all its entities. From a services point of view, Cisco Tejas has quite a large national footprint as far as services goes. We tap into just over 170 field agents, over just over 20 located branches nationally. 3 of those hubs exist in Johannesburg, Durban, and Cape Town. Effectively, we drive a very strong, well-rounded business, and I think the partnership with Tejas, kind of complements and creates that value prop eventually. So why did we partner? I think it's important to talk about quite a few of the aspects around why we partnered. I think the engineering superiority of the product certainly is a key factor, right? I mean, it's a driving factor behind this. However, that's not really the only reason we chose to partner. Tejas Network comes with a massive skills base and talent base from an engineering perspective. And I guess it's part of how they become the optical fiber manufacturing powerhouse they are internationally today. And I guess we're trying to bring some of that awesomeness back to South Africa. I mean, you have the offerings from the full service stack offering, which includes your pre-sales teams, the advisory teams, your managed services teams, consultancy, building, and your post-sales service and support function, which are all available to clients currently locally and internationally. What I'd like to do is maybe share a little bit of my personal journey with how the Cisco Tejas and Tejas partnership started off. I had the pleasure of visiting the headquarters in Bangalore. I've actually done a couple of trips there, and I'm hoping, by the end of this week, we've signed the rest of you up as clients, and very soon, when the lockdown restrictions on international travel are lifted, we can all host you guys back in Bangalore for a visit to the Tejas Client Experience Center, which is very impressive. It certainly is quite an immersive experience. You get a sense at a smaller scaled version, of how the equipment gets to deliver the value and functionality that it does. Specifically in this little setup that we experienced here in Bangalore, where you got the smart city feel, that was created on the back of the network solution and the offering itself. So just if you're wondering, these were all pictures I took personally, so excuse the quality of some of them, but I was hoping it could help shape the picture and journey of how things progress around the partnership. So the headquarters are in Bangalore, and the manufacturing plant is in Bangalore as well. And we were also privileged to get access and some sight into the R&D space. Now, I think this is quite an important part of the offering. I think this was quite impressive as far as the fact that there's over 60% of the staff and workforce are committed to the R&D of the product itself. And I think the product and offering itself stands out specifically because of that type of culture that's created in the entity. So as much as this is a strong point of Tejas, this was also not the reason we chose to partner. I want to introduce you guys to a project which you may or may not have heard of. It's called the Bharatnet Project, the Bharatnet Project. And if you Google it, This is a screenshot from the Wikipedia page. It's the world's largest broadband rollout project, funded by public sector in India. And Tejas was a major player in providing the GPON and access layer equipment for that solution. And this is pretty much part of the reason and the real reason why we thought partnering was important. The project itself has some amazing stats to share. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm going to leave that for a little later. But the stats on the project itself is amazing. So think about this. Connecting the most rural of rural India with fibered internet connectivity. Okay. Now, last year, we took a SA contingent over to India, and we were quite privileged to visit one of these villages that had been given access to fiber connectivity. It's a village just 2 hours out of New Delhi in an area called Haryana. And as you can see, when you have the image of village, this is pretty much what you think you're going to get, and that's exactly what you get. I mean, the water and electricity infrastructure here is barely functional, but available. But they have connected fiber to this village. In fact, we got to visit one of the POP that serves this specific village. And you get a good feel for how the connectivity has changed lives in that rural space. Here's a few pictures of that CSC, or Client Service Center. And you can see that it doubles not just as a POP, but it doubles as a training facility as well. It also houses some of the EGovernment Services functions that are required, as well as e-health functions that are required. And the training facility often has a daily schedule of specific training that's done, for whether it's basic things like crocheting or knitting or basic skills, but they use online material and resources to conduct that training. What's even more interesting is that it also doubles as a space where they can showcase sporting events like the cricket events. And then you can imagine the Indians and the cricket passion. So especially when the Indian national team plays, the centers use the space where the villagers can come through and watch a streaming feed of the cricket match. What we've done is looked at some of the e-government services that get serviced out of this POP. And what was impressive was we were there when these bunch of local villages are pitched up and they needed some help. Now, normally what happens is there's a government grant that each citizen can apply for, and these villages normally apply for it manually. It normally takes them 2 days to travel to the nearest government center. Often it's a long trip there, and it's a long wait there, and it's stay over, get back, a day or two later, so it's normally quite a massive, arduous trip, which normally takes 2 days, and these guys were able to do this in less than 30 minutes by means of an online access and service model that's provided by the Client Service Center. And as you can see, there's a doctor online model as well. So, I mean, it really culminates into what we believe is really the life-changing aspects of connectivity. Right? And this is really the reason we partnered, is the capabilities to make this happen exists in the IP and the product that's created by Tejas. And I think that's pretty much what we were looking forward to in South Africa, right? I mean, this is exactly where we expect to see connectivity going and the difference it should be making to individuals' lives eventually. And this was the kicker for us. Right? So this really pushed the discussion. So it's just coming back to those stats. 154,000 villages which are part of phase 1 rollout were connected with fiber. And I think the target is to connect up all villages. And I think that number ranges to 750,000, just over 700,000. So there's still a lot of work still to be done. just over 700,000 Wi-Fi hotspots, over 440,000 kilometers of fiber, 2.5 million government institutes connected, and the one specific offering around the dock online created just over 60,000 jobs. And if you notice on one of the pictures I had previously on the slides that showed it was 5 rupees for 30 minutes of access to the internet, right? So that boils down to like a rand 16 cents for 30 minutes. And I think that price point obviously is quite affordable for the locals. You're probably wondering, you know, with that type of spread of access and that cost of access, the performance of the network was probably quite shoddy. And that's not true. When I was there, I connected my phone to the Wi-Fi, did a bit of a speed test on my phone, was able to get 35 meg download, 36 meg upload with a 13 millisecond ping, which I think is much better than some of the core hubs access that we have here locally. So I think no one's to say that low pricing means low quality, right? I think that's really a selling point on the project. And I think this was the real reason we partnered. And I mean, it's been a great partnership, and we continue to strive to bring that quality locally. And I guess with partners like the ISPs, the FNOs, we believe we can bring some of that magic locally and make that happen for the local market and make those changes and drive that impact to the local lives as well. So yeah, thanks for allowing me to share this with you. And please, we'd love to hear from you further, and let's chat more about this. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Laveen. So shall I begin my presentation now?
Kumar, actually, we have a poll. Can we take
That's the poll. Yeah.
So are you planning to modernize or expand your broadband network in the near future? The options are yes, no, and not decided yet.
So Arun or Anu, let me know when I can start sharing my screen.
You can start sharing your screen, Kumar.
Okay, is the poll ended?
Yeah, I ended.
Okay. Thank you all. Is my screen visible in full screen mode? Anu or?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Since we've overshot a little bit on time, I will finish my talk in 10 minutes. Actually, a lot of what I wanted to, there's an overlap with Leveen's talk and mine, so I'll skip those portions. So Tejas is an Indian company. You could look us up. We are a publicly listed company in India, so all details are available. We're 20 years old, but 3 years in the public space. And we are in all forms of telecommunication equipment, which is optical and also fixed wireless, whatever ISPs need, Ethernet. So optical and broadband access, including wireless access, is our focus area. We have customers across the world. Many in Africa are our customers. I hope some of you are already our customers or will be. But you can see many of the leading African ISPs and wholesale providers in the list of African customers. And we do have marquee customers worldwide. We not only are making products, we're also trying to set the standards. So from India, we formed a standards development organization and became an organizational member of 3GPP. And I was the first chairman. Some of us from India drove this. So we are now are shaping the 5G standards. We actually introduced a rural broadband option for 5G, which will be mandatory from the next release of 5G onwards. So we said 5G as it is today is a very urban-centric technology. We needed to have large rural broadband, large cells, and we have driven those technology initiatives from India as well. Colin has talked about this quite a lot. So today, everyone's studying from home, we are working from home, entertainment from home continues, healthcare from home. It's nowadays that's the norm after COVID. So COVID is leading the digital transformation of the global economy. So post-COVID, what do you as operators need to do? You need to add new broadband connections. I think that is very, very quickly, because you have many customers demanding broadband. Maybe they were making do with mobile broadband. Now they need wired broadband. Those who already have broadband need superior SLAs. I'm working from home now, and I'd really like something equal to my office connection, not my regular home broadband connection. In particular, I want protection against fiber cuts. The last 4 months, I've had a fiber cut and I was out of broadband for 2 days and managing with mobile broadband. Lastly, the bandwidths, the data rates have gone up in all areas of your network, and you need to be able to scale it up, not only at the access and edge, but also in the core of the network. And there are plenty of stats, so I'm not presenting stats right now. So we also need different customers need different forms of connectivity. Homes need GPON-based connectivity. Enterprises need Ethernet-based. They're used to getting rings, and they have some special requirements. And larger enterprises need deterministic private line type of connectivity, which is provided by MPLS TP. So we actually have a product that delivers all three of these from the same box. So that's one way to add to serve all your customers out of one box. For addition of new broadband users, the hardest part is getting the fiber to the new customer. Hospitals are suddenly the new customer segment. Many of them had poor or no connectivity because they didn't think that getting connected was important. You'd go to the hospital if you needed medical care. With COVID, every hospital wants very good connectivity because a lot of their activity has now become remote. At the peak, you couldn't treat regular patients, so you needed only remote connectivity. So a wireless connectivity, which is quickly set up, we're using the same 4G technology, LTE technology, but fixed wireless, so that you can get a broadband connection type of experience, is the best way to add new broadband users. And over time, you could migrate the connection to a fiber. Protection, I talked about this. Home broadband connections are typically unprotected, but now they're becoming critical because home broadband connection, the top, the CEOs of the world are working from their homes. So the home broadband connection now is effectively running the global economy. So you can upgrade the home broadband connection to have protection for the fiber up to the last splitter, up to the home. So this is quite suitable. And many of our customers are now looking at using this technology so they get resilience in their customer connections. Protection in the backbone is important, but if you are in telecom, you're used to ring protection. So all traffic needs to end up at one destination using two paths. Now we need to think differently. Why one destination? The only destination is the internet. So you could go to two internet gateways. So if you have a bunch of nodes which need to go to the internet, they could go to one internet gateway. And if there's a fiber cut, the traffic simply gets routed to another internet gateway. So, and there has to be seamless in handover of all the subscriber traffic. And we have implemented technology to do this without the cooperation of the internet gateways or anything else. Our broadband access equipment will read out traffic from one internet gateway to the other seamlessly without the internet gateways knowing anything in order to protect for fiber cuts. And this will happen within 50 milliseconds, protecting all your subscriber traffic. So this is how you can transform your network to add all manner of protection. For scaling, you just have to up the speeds. GPON was 2.5 gig. Most people said, well, customers need 100 meg at home. Even if we give them a gig connection, they only use on average 100 meg. But think twice, now that's changing. And we are now seeing our customers can't wait for 10G symmetric PON, which is called XGS PON, which will give 10 gig symmetric to which you can, where you had 2.5 gig downlink and 1.2 gig uplink. Now you get 10 gig symmetric on the same network infrastructure. We just have to change the device at the home. So that's one way to upgrade. Access rings, which used to connect business customers, are going from 10 gig to 100 gig. And of course, wireless can go to 5G in future. So we are seeing tremendous increase in speeds. Our aggregation rings used to be multiple 10 gigs. Now they're multiple 100 gigs. Our customer in Malaysia is upgrading all 750 nodes on 10 gig rings to 100 gig in the next 2 years. And core rings are going to 600 gig now, multiples of 600 gig. We also have a technology to add alien wavelengths, so wavelengths to your existing network. So if you have a WDM network from any other vendor, we could add 100 gig and even 200 gig services onto the same network. This is something we've done extensively in South Africa. Nearly 15 networks in South Africa use this technology to add capacity and scale up. So this is our product portfolio that we use to evolve, transform, and scale your network. They go all the way from 10 gig to 100 gig in the access rings to multi-terabits, like 48 terabits, or 64 channels of 600 gig. That's really tens of terabits in the core of the network. I'll illustrate one of our broadband access products. This supports all three technologies, Ethernet, GPON, and LTE. The way it would work is if you have a new customer, you could start with 4G based wireless access, broadband access. So, and optical backhaul is built in. So you would carry this traffic back on 10 gig. And if you have GPON customers nearby, they could be served by a GPON card. If you have business customers, they're served by business Ethernet. And everything gets backhauled here on multiple 10 gig rings or a 100 gig ring. And if you have 5G in future, that can be added as well. Okay. So this is our product family. We have a whole family of products. I will not go through them. We have a whole family of GPON products as well. These are OLTs. We have GPON ONTs, which go into the home, including one for 10 gig, a few models for 10 gig GPON. And then we have core products, which do this multiples of 100 gig, 600 gigs. Let me just spend time on just one product. Again, like any other telecom OEM, we have a slew of products. This is our latest run, one that I'm very proud of. So this is one card that does 2.4 terabits. So if you have two interfaces of 600 gig each, and then you can drop off that 1.2 terabits either as 1200 gigs or 40 10 gigs or some combination. So you can drop 1.2 terabits into 100 or 10 gig, and you can carry this over long distances. If you're at 600 gig, you can carry it across any of your metros. At 200 gig each, you can carry this across the length and breadth of South Africa. 1800 kilometers is not an issue. There's leading performance. So if you have long distance requirements, please do consider this platform. We have other routine WDM cards as well. And finally, this we launched in AfricaCom last year. We were actually showing this product in Cape Town. It's a 48 terabit switch with leaves. The interface cards are now leaves connected by cables. It's a non-traditional architecture. So we no longer just put cards in a chassis. We cable them up to 12 interface shells can be cabled. This allows you to scale the network much better. And this box is 48 terabits of switching. You can stack it up. If you did 48 terabits, it would look like this with 12 leaf shelves stacked up. Alien waves, we have a number of deployments in South Africa, so I will not go through them. But essentially, we launch and go top 1500 kilometers or more. You can also, instead of expanding on router capacities, as ISPs, you might be expanding a lot on router capacities. So for example, if you wanted to do 10 gig drop to each router, you would need a 30 gig ring here. So each of these routers has 6 10 gig interfaces. Instead, we could build an OTN ring and just have one 10 gig interface from those routers. So this saves you a lot of cost on routing, and some of our largest customers in India are deploying this. Bharatnet, I will not go through because Laveen has already done that. As an add-on to the Bharatnet, we've now deployed a network in 4,800 railway stations in India. These are small rural railway stations, but the railway station gets an OLT, which means the rest of the village can be connected with maybe 64 users, homes, schools, hospitals, everything. This is actually even better in terms of capacity than the Bharatnet, and this is actually carrying a lot of traffic. This is the day it was installed. This is in some sense even better than Bharatnet, simply because there's more traffic at the railway stations, and also this was built with even more capacity than in Bharatnet. It's again built with GPON, and everything is managed. So let me summarize. I think all of you ISPs are on the cusp of a growth cycle. There's a massive surge in traffic. We are the only industry which is unaffected, which is affected positively by COVID, and I say it in a positive manner. Airlines, hospitality, everybody else is down. Even car rentals are down, though they may pick up later. Hertz is bankrupt. In the tech sector is doing well, but telecom in particular, where we are and ISPs are doing well at the expense, perhaps, of airlines and hospitality and so on. And we have a good portfolio for many of your needs. So please do consider us and work with our local partners, Cisco in Africa. Thank you for your attention.